everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the UFC DFS / betting show, presented, of course, by Run for Your Sports. I'm Draftcheat, you know that by now, joined by my two partners in crime, Titletown, Keg. We're talking UFC 273, fantastic UFC event tonight. Title, what's going on, man?
Going on, DC? Always fun doing these shows. A little extra special when it's on a Saturday instead of a Friday, because you know that means pay-per-view time. Two title fights, very, very good ones. Peter Yan, Volkanovski, two of the most well-rounded fighters you'll see. Then, of course, you got Chimaev. Everyone loves watching him fight. So three crazy fights. We lost one fight yesterday, Marcin Tybura, Rosenstruck. So that fight's off, 13 fights to 12. We had one missed weight, Kay Hansen. It wasn't bad missed weight, though. They're still going to fight. Other than that, every fight on the card, ready to go. Excited to talk some fights.
Yeah, and you can kind of tell, at least the DFS world's excited about these fights. The main DraftKings MMA tournament already full. They're already on to number 2 for the 15 or 20, I think $20 buy-in this week. So if you want to jump in those tournaments, do it now, because those are filling up. Maybe jump in while we're talking on air. Keg, what's going on, man?
What's going on, boys? I'm excited. Yeah, pay-per-view card. Hurt my feelings a little bit that they pulled the Rosenstruck fight because I liked them this week, but I think we can make some money this weekend. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, usually have a pretty good week on here, betting, DFS, and otherwise. So we'll do it. We'll try to do it this card as well. 12 fights, as we mentioned. We'll start with the earliest fights on the card. Talk about any betting angles we see. Keg's the betting expert, Title the DFS man, and I'll try to stay out of their way as much as I can. With that, let's get to it. First fight on this card, Julio Arce and Daniel Santos. Arce coming in minus 190 or so. I believe Santos making his UFC debut here. These guys fighting at bantamweight 135. Yeah, Santos UFC debut. Arce coming off a tough loss to Song Yadong, who we know is a pretty good fighter. So right off the bat, I think an interesting fight, one that I'm looking forward to watching. Keg, talk to me about Santos. What do you think of his prospects coming into the UFC here?
Yeah, so Danny Santos hasn't fought in, I think, 2 years. That's a concern for me when you're considering who he's going to fight now. I think the kid's really entertaining. He's pretty wild. His striking style can be focused at times, but sometimes he's wild. I think he's got good hands in the pocket. He throws fast and accurate, but he also can, throw. He's got a spinning back fist knockout. He's got like 3 spinning knockouts. So it's going to be a bunch of fun to see him. But it's easy to do that against easy level competition.
Yeah.
But I love the aggression that he's had. Sometimes it works for you, sometimes it doesn't. Julio Arce, who did not look good on the scales, and he looked better at the ceremonial weigh-ins, but I was a little concerned when I saw him on the scale. He's fought much tougher competition than Santos. He has power for the division. He's a former New York City Golden Gloves boxing champ. So his striking's really, really good, and he's well-rounded. He can roll, too. So he opened a minus 160 favorite. I didn't hit it because I was still trying to find all the tape I could on Santos. But after watching it, I agree with the line move. I'll probably have a little of both these guys, to be honest, because I think somebody's going to go down in DFS, right? But I think that there are a couple ways you can approach the fight. If you think we see violence until somebody drops, under 2.5 rounds is plus 125. I don't think that's a bad price because Arce's either won or lost by knockout 4 of his last 5, I think. If you're more sold on Arce, and you think that he wins by knockout, he's 4-1. But that decision prop at plus 150 isn't a bad price either. I think the best bet's probably the under 2.5 rounds at plus 125 because I think we're going to see some violence.
Yeah, it sounds like you expect these guys to stand and bang. I think that's probably what's going to happen in this fight, most likely. It is a slight favorite Title to go the distance. Sounds like Keg's maybe on the other side of that, but in terms of the line, it's like minus 140 to go the distance. Likely probably doesn't score all that well if it does go the distance. I do expect this fight to stay on the feet. We know with the MMA DFS scoring, obviously, those aren't the fights you necessarily want to target. But Santos is very cheap, 7,200 on DraftKings. Seems like he's a live dog here to me. 9K for Arce seems kind of like a lot. Interested to hear your thoughts from a DFS perspective, Title.
Yeah, everything you said makes sense. It's a plus 100 to end inside the distance, so it's a coin flip. I said the same thing in the playbook as you said. If this fight goes to decision, you will not want it if it is Arce winning. If it's Santos winning, you'll take any dog to start the card, especially a card like this one with big favorites toward the end. But, man, like Keg said, like Santos, about a 2.5-year layoff. He's making his UFC debut. There's just a lot of unknowns with him coming in. He does throw a lot of spinning stuff. He's pretty crazy on the feet, which, yeah, that stuff's really fun to watch. When it lands, it's really nice. But when it doesn't, it takes energy out of you, and you leave holes in your striking defense. He's taking on Julio Arce, and Julio Arce is coming off while Santos is not fighting, taking 2.5 years, making his debut. We got Julio Arce fighting Song Yadong, who probably the future champ, in my opinion, eventually. This man is so special. He fights Andre Ewell. He walks right through Ewell, knocks him out in the second round. Akeem Dawodu, he loses a split decision. Head kicks Julian Erosa. Like, look at those 4 names compared to who we're talking for Santos. I like Julio Arce. Man, his boxing is crisp. He has power in his hands. Defensively, he can be hit a little bit. The chin, I'm a little concerned about. Song Yadong hitting that chin, though, is a lot different than a Santos hitting the chin. So at the end of the day, I looked at at the beginning of the week, I looked at all the odds and all that. And what stood out the most as a parlay piece was Arce at minus 180. I just think he's all around way better. And I think people are over exaggerating, whatever the correct word is, for the last performance where he gets knocked out by Yadong. If he makes that fight a little more competitive, he fights someone else, I think he's probably sitting here at a minus 250 or something in this fight. So I like Julio Arce's game. I'm not jumping off of him just because of last fight against Song Yadong. I think ownership, people are going to take a shot on Santos. I think it's fine. He'll be in my player pool, but there are other dogs I like more. I'm pretty confident with Arce. I'll overspend to get lower ownership and hope I get a first or second round knockout. That's how I'm approaching it. So I like an overweight Arce, the underweight Santos approach, while I think other people are going to be on the opposite side due to ownership and odds.
One last note. I agree with Title. Based on the level of competition that we've seen Arce, I mean, he should go through this kid, right? But are you concerned about how he looked on the scale? Man, he did not look good.
He missed weight too, right? He came in at 136.5, so he's forfeiting.
He didn't miss weight.
Oh no,
because 135, you're able to get that 1.5 pounds. So the 136.5, like that's like the most he could. At least that's what I'm seeing.
Well, yeah, his DraftKings blurb said he missed weight and will forfeit 20% of his purse. So.
Oh well, then I did not see
that. You can only miss by 1 pound. So,
yeah. So the
extra half, I think.
So I mean, like, am I concerned? I was a little concerned, but like you said, Keg, you watch a ceremonial weight, like those 24 hours and all of that time. A lot of fighters, unless they literally like have trouble even walking up and standing and stuff, I usually don't put as much stock into it because those 24 hours that rehydrate your body, everything they get into it, I personally don't put as much.
I think that makes
especially because I think it's going to be on the feet. I don't think they're going to be wrestling and scrambling for 15 minutes, which really zaps the gas tank.
I tend to agree with you. I will say, I think 1.5 pounds is like the most worrisome to miss by, or a half pound, I guess, to miss by, because that means he did try. He thought he could make it, right? He got within half a pound of making the weight. So that means he was draining his body, right? Most likely fully in those last couple hours trying to get down there, couldn't quite make it. So I guess, I mean, I think it's reasonable. And then, Keg, you said he didn't look good on the scale. So I think it's reasonable to be somewhat concerned. I will say with Santos, you guys mentioned all the kind of the flashy strikes, spinning back fist types. That stuff normally doesn't work too well, honestly, in the UFC. Like, unless you're a really special fighter, you know, like John Jones lands those kinds of things. Most fighters that try that stuff, though,
or your Molly McCann who lines it up for 4 seconds.
Sure, yeah, exactly. But I don't think that's going to land on Julio Arce. So I do kind of like that angle, fading the flashy stuff in UFC. Seems like it's a pretty good way to go. So that's the first fight. We'll move on at this point to the next one, women's division, Kay Hansen and Piera Rodriguez. Slight favorite here, minus 130 or so. We'll go back to you for this one, Keg. What do you see between Rodriguez and Hansen?
Here's the thing. My money will legitimately be absolutely nowhere near this fight. I watched last night. I went back and watched Rodriguez's Contender Series fight because she's got a lot of hype behind her, this girl.
Undefeated,
and
yep.
I watched it and like I wasn't blown away where I was like, this girl's definitely going in and gonna smash Kay Hansen. Don't get me wrong, Kay Hansen is a scrub. She's a busted prospect, 7-5 now. Not very good at all. So I understand why people think Rodriguez is going to go in there and really put it on her. But in saying that, first of all, my money won't be anywhere near the fight at all. I would tell everybody just find another angle in another fight because this is real low-level women's MMA. But I would still, if I was going to bet the fight, I think I would go and lean with the dog, to be honest, because I just don't. I don't know. Maybe this girl becomes somebody, but I haven't been overly impressed with what I've seen yet. So I'm gonna completely avoid. You got 13 fights tonight. Scratch that one off the list from a betting perspective. Move on to the next one. But yeah, I mean, if I had a free bet, I'd probably still lean the dog.
Yeah. Hansen did miss weight again. So the first two fights, we got two fighters missing weight. Hansen came in, I think 2.5 pounds over, I believe, is what I'm seeing. Yeah, I really haven't been impressed by Hansen. This doesn't seem to have much power, really much of anything, right? Just kind of I guess well-rounded, but not really that well-rounded, not really that great at anything, right? So I get it. It's, hard not to take just an undefeated fighter against someone that is bad in Hansen. But Rodriguez, that Contender Series fight, you said you watched it, Keg. Rodriguez did get 3 takedowns there. What did you think of her wrestling, top control, that type of thing?
I'll tell you, the first thing that popped out to me when she was in those exchanges, she was tired. Like her posture, but when she was up against the cage, she was pretty exhausted. I thought her top control wasn't bad. I thought the girl that she fought in that fight had actually pretty solid stand-up. And I thought that Rodriguez dealt with that pretty well. But yeah, she was gassed in the wrestling exchanges, but her top control seemed pretty solid.
Yeah, she didn't land all that many strikes in that fight that she won in the Contender Series title. This fight, -175 to go to decision. And despite these are 115ers women's fights, sometimes you see all the women's division, but especially the lower weight classes, they throw a lot of volume, right? They don't always have the power, but at least they get the volume. These two fighters don't even necessarily have the super high output that can get you there in DFS, even if you don't get the finish. So from a DFS standpoint, both these fighters in that mid-range, 8,300 for Rodriguez, 7,900 for Hansen. My lean is to look elsewhere for most of my lineups other than this fight, but curious to hear where you're at on this fight and your strategy for DFS title.
Well, first of all, man, my phone was blowing up. I had to look what was going on. Dwayne Haskins, I guess, just passed away.
I saw that before
Yeah, man, rest in peace to him. I was wondering what was going on, but yeah, 25, that's really sad. As far as this fight though, yeah, I mean, man, low level woman's fight. Kay Hansen came into the UFC pretty highly touted. I mean, she's only 22 years old. She's never been an underdog in a UFC fight. There's only been one like 6 fights ago where she was plus 125 dog, but all UFC fights, she's been a favorite, a pretty big size one. She's lost her last 2. This is a clash of styles. We have Rodriguez, who wants to stay on the feet. She's 7-0. She's making her UFC debut. She has some pop in her shots too at strawweight, where you don't see girls have like knockout ability. She's knocked out 5 of her 7 opponents by knockouts. So I do like to see the pop in the hands. On the feet, I think it's Rodriguez all day. I think she can piece up Hansen, have success there. Hansen wants to get the fight on the mat and use her wrestling though. And I just haven't been able to see Rodriguez's takedown defense. I think it's not great, but I don't really know. Like there's so many unknowns. You can't find too much tape. and like good competition and where the takedown defense has been tested. Is her get up game all right? It looks like the get up game is better than the takedown defense, but I'm not saying that with any confidence. So with so many unknowns, someone making their UFC debut, on the other side, someone that's 1-2, but has been in the UFC multiple times, and I see them as an underdog, it's a dog or pass for me as I'm approaching it the same way as Keg. On the feet, it's Rodriguez all the day. On the mat, it's Hansen. It's plus 130 to end inside the distance, which, as Big T always talks about, plus 130 is not a lot. It's very likely, like, if it finishes, no one would be surprised. If it doesn't, it doesn't. This fight's going to be lower owned because it's supposed to go to decision, because it's a woman's fight. Rodriguez has popped to finish this fight on the feet. Hansen and her path to victory is takedowns, top control, etc. I wouldn't be surprised if either of these two were on the optimal, and their ownership's not going to reflect that at all. So getting overweight won't be as hard as some other fights are. And I'll take a shot, but I lean the dog in Hansen. It's a $400 savings. Close fight, a lot of unknowns. Give me the dog.
One final note. Title touched on something that he's right. Rodriguez, she's got pop in her hands, right? The problem is she doesn't throw them. She is incredibly low volume from what I've seen, but her punches count. So Title, do you think it could be DFS wise put you in a position where if it doesn't end inside the distance, it puts you in a bad spot?
Yeah, I mean, if for Rodriguez, you want the finish if you're playing her, especially because she's going to be on the feet and the volume isn't as much. For Kay Hansen, though, she can get there in a decision because of her wrestling and her top control.
Okay.
Yeah. DFS wise, if you're going to get a decision, you want takedowns and top control. Pretty much, you're going to need those to get a big score. So that's Hansen. Rodriguez will move from the women's division to the men's division. Two heavyweights, big boys, Jared Vanderaa, Alexey Oleinik. Oleinik was on the card a couple weeks ago, right? The last UFC card that we saw. That bout got canceled. I can't remember why. Maybe one of you guys remember. But this fight,
Latifi had to pull out, and then Latifi had to pull out. Then in this fight, he was supposed to fight Latifi this week. Again, Latifi pulled out, and then Vanderaa stepped in on short notice.
Okay, so Oleinik himself has been good to go. No concerns with him other than this being his 90th career fight. Vanderaa, a little bit of a favorite here, minus 120 or so. Yeah, we talked kind of at length about Oleinik last fight, where it's just like, man, he just continues to get the job done despite all the wear and tear. A small dog here. Yeah, we'll go back to you, Keg. Who do you see winning this one? Because it's more or less a coin flip in the betting market.
So I think I'm going to surprise a Title here because we were all digging the Oleinik sub last week at plus 300 or 2 weeks ago. We were all about it, right? But Title's higher on Jared Vanderaa than I am. But I got to be honest, this week I'm on him. We're not talking about a guy now that's minus 200. We're talking about a guy that's minus 110, right? At least he has a black belt in BJJ. I think he should be able to protect himself on the ground in the first round should he get taken down. And if he stays on his feet for the first round, he takes rounds 2 and 3 easily or gets a late finish because his gas tank is way better than Alexey Oleinik. And Oleinik blows his load. He's got 6 minutes. If he struggles to get him down in the first round and expends energy, he's dead for the fight early in the second round. And at that point, I think that Jared Vanderaa either takes rounds 2 and 3 or gets a late finish in like a third round finish from Oleinik just being exhausted, depending on how much he struggles in the first round. So yeah, I'm gonna be on Jared Vanderaa here.
It's hard for me to bet on a guy who has like the body of a DFS player in Vanderaa. I nominate him for worst body in the UFC. Vanderaa. This guy looks like he's never even lifted a weight in his life. He's got,
I haven't said a good thing about him on this show. Anytime we brought his name up, I'm on him today though.
Yeah, I don't know if I can do it. You know how some of the women they fight with T-shirts on? Vanderaa should do that just to save us all, save our eyes.
That's not nice. That's
tell me I can bet on Oleinik here.
Well, first of all, I want to say, okay, I am not high on Jared Vandera's game. On this fight, though.
Me, though, you are.
Huh? Well, I don't think, let's see. If you go back to his fight.
I might be better than Jared Vanderaa, bro. I don't leave my house.
Well, you're in better shape, that's for sure.
I mean, the thing, you're talking about it. Jared Vanderaa tips the scales at 265, 266 every single fight. Oleinik, I think he weighed in at 244 or something, which is heavier than he usually weighs. The problem with me in this one, the problem with me in this one is, how do I back Alexey Oleinik in 2022 at 44 years old with one round of cardio and pretty much one out path to victory? I mean, I say one path to victory, and that'd be against most people. I guess if he knocked out Jared Vanderaa, like, Vandera's no good, so I guess I wouldn't be the most shocked. But pretty much, you look at Alexey Oleinik, his path to victory: get a takedown early, get him on the ground when he's fresh. 46 submissions in his career, he'll submit Jared Vanderaa. If he gets a takedown within the first 2 minutes, yeah, that's probably all she wrote. It's probably going to be a submission. That's why Alexey Oleinik can still be fighting at the age of 44. However, with Jared Vanderaa, I like this fight more than the Latifi fight because Latifi throws no volume at all. I expected 3 takedowns, 1 each round, and he was just going to lay on him and just not allow anything. Vanderaa at least throws good volume. He has pretty good cardio for the heavyweight division. So on the feet, I think he can pick apart Alexey Oleinik, and that's how I expect it to go. If Vanderaa gets on top, I mean, he's massive on top. I don't think you should go to the ground with Alexey Oleinik. We know how this low-level heavyweight and low-level all these fights are, where they just don't have a game plan, it seems. And if you want, like, the Paul Craig Krylov fight, DC, remember, like, right away, Krylov goes for the takedown, the one path to victory where Craig has. You have success until you're not. So I hope Vanderaa doesn't take it to the ground. He has some good ground and pound, but again, Oleinik wants to be on the mat. He'll invite you there. On the feet, though, I just think Vanderaa, with the volume, with the cardio advantage, with all that, I think he takes over as the fight goes on. And Alexey Oleinik has no cardio. So as the fight goes, Vanderaa starts breaking him. I think he could finish this fight, but Spivak didn't even finish this fight. So I'm seeing minus 400. I think betting wise, taking like a Vanderaa by decision, I don't know what that pays. It has to pay pretty good. I think it's worth taking a little sprinkle on that. But for DFS, both guys are 8,100, minus 400 to end inside the distance. You have to have interest in both guys, but I'm not playing Oleinik. I don't think I'm ever going to bet on Oleinik the rest of his career. And there's no way I can. If I'm playing Vanderaa over him, I can't be betting anyone against him. So that's my take.
He's 5-1 to win by decision.
5-1. Yeah, I think that's worth a nice little sprinkle.
Oleinik wins. Oleinik's going to sub him in round 1, plus 300 on FanDuel. You guys are talking about.
This is where I was last week. I was right on the train with you. This week, though, to be honest, I don't even mind that as like a little, like taking him by decision at 5-1, and then like sprinkling a little round 3 finish, which I think he was like 14-1. I want to say in the 3rd round, maybe. And then you could Oleinik will not win the fight unless he submits him. So, I mean, you could either take that too and still bank profit on the fight.
Vanderaa, he's got some obviously experience in the UFC. A 20% takedown defense is about as low as you're going to see with someone with as many fights as he has. Obviously, that's where Oleinik wants to get it. I don't know. I
will say, though, like if you look at those, like Alexander Romanov, complete stud on the mat. Sergey Spivak, pretty good on the mat. So those two were the main ones. But
Oleinik must be pretty good. He's been doing it for 85 fights.
If this fight was 15 years ago, I'm all over Oleinik. I'll put the house on Oleinik. I'll tell you that for free.
All right. Well, I'm going with Oleinik here over Vanderaa. It sounds like I'm in the minority, but you guys take Marshmallow Man Vanderaa. It's not for me. We'll move on to the next fight: Mickey Gall and Mike Malott here. Guys, I'm looking for the odds here. There they are. They're all screwed up on best fight odds, but Malott minus 195 favorite. Obviously Gall coming in plus 160 or so as the dog. I really haven't been all that impressed with Mickey Gall. So yeah, excited to hear how you've got to break this one down, because Yeah, my initial lean is Malott here, even as a decent sized favorite. What do you see?
So yeah, listen. I think that Mike Malott is pretty solid. He used to fight all the way down, I think, at featherweight, right? And that's concerning because Mickey Gall is huge for this division, and Malott at one point did fight at featherweight, but he's a team alpha male guy. Last time I checked, he has decent hands, decent wrestling. Here's my gigantic problem with him. He's been out of the first round one time in his career. That one time was in 2015 on a Bellator card. In that fight, he won the first round, got off the stool, totally gassed out, total adrenaline dump, had absolutely nothing. That's the only time that we've seen him outside the first round. And that's a problem for me when it comes to backing him. And it's probably going to keep me off of him because Mickey Gall, listen, I think he's a very good grappler. Okay. Although he was out grappled by Mike Perry once, which is an awful look, but he still has a very good BJJ game, but his hands are weak. It's a problem for him. They might be getting slightly better in that Morono fight, but still a problem for him. So, listen, as far as who wins, I think that Gall is a live dog here at plus 160. I haven't seen anything from Malott to make me think he deserves to be a $2 favorite in this spot. Now, am I running to the window to bet it? Not really, because every fight starts on the feet and Malott has better stand-up. But based on history, I think it's pretty hard to make a case that there isn't value on Gall at plus 160, considering that this kid's been out of the first round one time in his career.
Yeah, I think that's all fair. Malott, he wants to keep it standing, you think, probably in this fight, Keg?
I think that's where he's got the biggest advantage for sure.
Yeah, because I really haven't been impressed by Mickey Gall's striking, or just not a favorite of mine. Title, what do you see between these two?
I'm on Keg's side. I mean, I already bet Mickey Gall plus 165. I think I got. And the problem is, it's not like necessarily I'm confident he's going to win the fight. I just think there's plenty of value, and it makes no sense why Malott is a minus 190, minus 200. When, I mean, the man hardly fights anyway. He fought on Contender Series in 2021. He fought in 2020, then in 2017, 2015. Like his last four fights, 2015, that was the one he went to 3 rounds. But if you look at the 2017, 2020, 2021 fight, he has a total of 2 minutes and 17 seconds of cage time in those 3 fights. Like there's so many unknowns. Nobody knows what Mike Malott's going to show up to the octagon. And while that's going on, Mickey Gall, I agree with you. I'm not very impressed with him. He's only 7-4, but he's making his 11th walk to the UFC octagon. He's been fighting the UFC since 2016. He's fighting. I mean, yeah, he coming off Alex Morono. Alex Morono is a good fighter. Jordan Williams, he dropped him. He took the back, submitted him. Obviously, Jordan Williams' chin's kind of dusty, but he's at least fighting UFC caliber opponents, getting experience, getting better. The Santos has definitely made improvements from the beginning of his career until now. I'm getting a plus 165. He's 7,400 on DraftKings. This fight's expected to end inside the distance. We're going to get to the 3 main fights later, but spoiler alert, I like the favorites in that one. You have to find dogs on this card. Mickey Gall, 7,400 against a guy that is making his UFC debut with very little cage time in the past 5 years, 6 years. Just think it all adds up to take a shot on the dog. I'm going to have some Mike Malott. He's 8,800. This fight's supposed to end. His striking, I think he has a striking advantage. He's good grappler too. Like he coaches over at American Top Team, I believe it is. Team Alpha Male, excuse me. He coaches BJJ and striking. His BJJ is nice, but the easiest path to victory is on the feet. If he goes and out grapples Mickey Gall, I'm definitely going to be impressed. I'm not saying it's out of the realm of possibilities, but why would you go to the other man's strength, which is, all of Mickey Gall's 6 of his 7 wins are by submission. I just don't think Malott should take it there. If he knocks Mickey Gall out, 8,800, you'll want that score, but I'm going to have more of the dog, and I think the value for betting is on the dog.
Yeah, we haven't discussed it yet, but it is a a very unique card DFS wise, just because of the three massive favorites to end in the night. Right, they're all between what -500 and -800, basically. I think, and so you can't. Can you fit all three into a lineup? I haven't tried.
You can, but there's only so many combinations to do it with.
But my point is, most people making lineups are going to want two of those guys, at least three if you can fit them. And so you are going to see people. You're going to have to take shots on dogs, right? I think most lineups will have a couple of underdogs in their lineup. I would suspect Mickey Gall at 7,400 will be fairly popular. So I mean, understandably why, right? Like you said, Title, this fight is favored to end inside the distance. If Gall finishes him, and wins the fight, I think it's a good chance it's by submission, right? And possibly with top control time, he could end up scoring pretty well. So yeah, I'll have exposure to both these guys, DFS wise, but I bet Gall will be. It's kind of rare to see the underdog, a sizable underdog, be more popular in DFS, but I do think we'll see that tonight. Do you think Gall will be more popular than Malott, Title?
I think I have him right at the same ownership on the playbook.
Okay.
Because Malott's he's still -190 favorite. If you look at his finishing odds, they're still good. But yeah, for all the reasons you said as well, people are going to play Aljo, Burns, Korean Zombie. Like they're all still going to get ownership too. That it won't be as inflated. But yeah, I think I have both at 25 on the playbook. It's something like that.
Can either of you remember a card with the three massive favorites to end the night like this? I can't.
Yeah,
man. Yeah, I don't.
You know what the last one I think was? I think it was the card that Amanda Nunes was the headline championship fights.
Because then it was that one was Dustin Poirier McGregor, the second one, right? So that.
I think so. Title, what do you think the ownership's going to be on Burns, like percentage wise?
Let's see what I have in the. I don't think any of those guys are going to get insane. I have 13 on the playbook.
I was going to say 10 to 15. So yeah.
Okay.
We'll get to those fights because those are obviously interesting.
But it is worth talking about. Like,
yeah.
I mean, I said in the playbook and stuff. I'm taking the shot on more of the prelim dogs and hope that those guys anchor the stuff. So you have to kind of talk. It's impossible to ignore those whole fights while we're talking about these for DFS because they all go together.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I think we'll try to come up with a dog case when we get to those fights. But it's kind of tough for me, honestly. So excited to hear what you guys have to say about those three main fights when we get there. First, we got to go back to the women's division. Raquel Pennington, Aspen Ladd, top tier name there, but maybe not a top tier fighter. Title, we'll start with you on this one. Pennington, I believe, is a -190-ish favorite against Ladd. Both these fighters have a lot of octagon experience. Again, another fight that I can't claim to really be looking forward to this one. On paper, similar numbers in terms of the striking output, defense. Both of them can wrestle a little bit. So again, two, I guess, well-rounded fighters, but not very exciting, at least in one man's opinion over here. Title, what do you see between Pennington and Ladd?
Yeah, I mean, Rocky Pennington, she's just, like you said, she's like solid in all aspects. She's a decision fighter. 8 of her 13 wins are by decision. She's fought pretty good competition, Macy Chasson, Holly Holm, Marion Renault. Like, she's fought good competition for sure. You look at the odds. Yeah, I mean, I was kind of surprised to see her sitting at about -200. It's down to -180 in some spots. Aspen Ladd has never been a dog in any of her fights. She's very highly touted. She had a lot of hype behind her. And it seems like a lot of that fell off after last fight against Norma Dumont. Rightfully so. That was one of the ugliest fights, the grossest fights I've ever seen. Aspen Ladd just pretty much did nothing. It took her a couple rounds to realize she was in the fight to even start shooting for takedowns and stuff. I will say, though, that fight was at 145. She's finally back in her right weight class at 135, and she made weight. She looked perfectly fine on the scales, which was always a big thing with her, was the weight cut. That was very, very good to see. Aspen Ladd, what she wants is the takedowns, get on top. Her wrestling, her ground and pound is nasty for the women's division, and she's really good when she gets it on the mat. But if she doesn't get it on the mat, she's usually going to lose the striking, and I think that's the same way in this fight. Raquel Pennington, on the feet, I give her the advantage. Pennington likes to use a lot of cage work, closes distance, holds them up against the cage, wins the little boring fights like that. But I'm looking at it, 8,900 for Pennington. When we're talking about all these studs in the upper tier, even the Mike Malott at 8,800 and stuff, easiest fade on the card for me, or not the easiest. We'll get to the main ones, but I'm not playing a Pennington at 8,900. Therefore, I like favorites later. It's a dog or pass. I think Aspen Ladd's very live. I think a lot of people are writing her off since her last fight. I like how she's coming back to a normal weight class. I like how the path to victory is takedowns, top control, ground and pound, since we know there's a ceiling for that. 7,300, when I'm already going to fade the 8,900 fighter, I need dogs on this card. I'm going to have some Aspen Ladd.
Yeah, Pennington has won her last 3 fights, all by decision, like you mentioned, but hasn't scored 100 DFS points in any of those fights. At 8,900, I think she's got a tough path to get to the optimal, especially with the big favorites who we think are going to score really well at the top of the card. So, yeah, I like the Ladd call. We'll go over to Keg. How do you see this fight going down?
Yeah, I think that the book's been written on Rocky Pennington. It's been long since written, really. I mean, she's a boxer, a very good boxer with a solid clinch game against the cage. And at this point, a slightly better than average gas tank, right? But I watched her last 4 losses this week because I wanted to just familiarize myself with them. The girl has not lost to a female fighter that has not been a champion in 8 years, I think, or 7 years. And listen, Aspen Ladd is not championship level, but she's young, she's hungry, she's improving. And I think you can also throw out that Norma Dumont fight to a certain extent because she got really sick. She couldn't make 135. They booked it at 145 a couple weeks later. And, you know, Norma Dumont's one of the true 145ers in that division. So I think that this is a really tough call for me. I have a slight edge towards Rocky Pennington, but from a betting perspective, I think that these lines should be relatively close, like minus 115, minus 105. So I think the value is definitely on Ladd here at plus 160.
I can't recall what happened in Ladd and Durandame because it ended real quick.
Yes, she got. I could pull up Sure Dog.
16 seconds. To be honest, I did not watch that fight, so
I just she didn't score a single fantasy point. So obviously 16 seconds.
She got knocked out. Yeah,
she got dropped. Yeah, right.
Yeah,
right.
I figured something like that. Ladd has actually had a decent amount of control time in most of her wins and her last loss. So maybe
she just got to get it there. That's all. If she gets it on the mat, she can control, and she is nasty on top.
Yeah, I kind of like the dog call here at 7,300. Again, you're going to have to take a couple of them. I think Ladd, probably my favorite so far, especially because I do think she could score pretty well if she is able to pull off this upset with takedowns and control time, perhaps. So we'll see. Yeah, Keg, your ultimate assessment, you thought the value was probably on Ladd if you're going either way?
Yeah, definitely, because I really think that the odds should be much closer. I think it's a tough one.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, let's move on to the next fight on the card. Anthony Hernandez minus 190-ish favorite over Josh Fremd. I don't know how to pronounce his name. I think it might be that. Yeah, Fremd making his UFC debut here, I believe. Yeah, Hernandez is the favorite. We'll go to you again, Title, to start this one off. What do you see between these two?
Yeah, man, Fluffy Hernandez, he's coming off one of the craziest victories. I clicked the wrong one, but yeah, Fluffy Hernandez against the black belt snatcher Rodolfo Vieira back in February 13th of 2021. Why I say that is a lot of people probably see, there's so many UFC fighters. If you see the name on the paper, you probably won't recognize it. If you've been watching for a little while, he was a massive underdog, one of the best grapplers in the world coming in. Rogan, all these guys are talking him up. And Rodolfo Vieira gassed after 2.5 minutes. And Fluffy Hernandez submitted Rodolfo Vieira, which I think was like plus 2,300, one of the craziest numbers out there. And yeah, he hasn't fought since then. I think that fight is baked into the line a little bit, and that's why it's a little wider than what I personally have it capped at. Josh Fremd, yeah, he's making his UFC debut. But man, this guy is good. I'm impressed with everything that I see from him. He's 9-2, 4 wins by KO, 3 by submission. He's got pop in his hands. He's taking this fight on short notice, which is a little concern. Fluffy Hernandez does push a pretty solid pace. His cardio is solid, but Josh Fremd is massive for this division. He's 6'4". He has a 4-inch height advantage, a 1-inch reach advantage. He's just a UFC debut fighter that I think is solid, that he's ready for the UFC, and he's coming in as an underdog against a Fluffy Hernandez who wants the fight on the mat. He's a better grappler than he is on the feet. I think Fremd knows that, and I think Fremd can have the advantage and piece Fluffy up on the feet in the beginning of the fight. The longer it goes, I'm a little concerned. But, man, I think Josh Fremd is live as it gets. I'm talking about loving these favorites in the later parts in the main event and stuff. I got to take prelim dogs, and I'm going to take another one in Fremd. 6'4", the height advantage, the striking advantage. His grappling isn't bad, even though you don't want to go to the mat with Fluffy. He has a little wrestling background. Give me another underdog with Josh Fremd. There is some unknowns, but he's 7,500. He's a dog. This fight's minus 500 to end inside the distance. The most likely fight. Chimaev is on this card. Peter Yan. All these guys are on this card, and this is the fight that's expected to end more than any other fight. So you have to have interest in it. I'm still going to have some Fluffy for sure, but give me another dog in Josh Fremd, and I'm going to take some of the unknowns.
Yeah, I like the call. Certainly looking at the ceremonial weigh-in pictures, Fremd, clearly the much bigger man. It looks like they're listed 6'4" to 6'0" for Fluffy, but looks even more than that. And then he just looks like kind of the stronger dude too. So right off the bat, you don't mind taking that angle. Titled that the last win for Fluffy that you mentioned, I personally don't recall it. Was it a case where he just got like an auto win because the other fighter just completely gassed and he just?
Well, yeah, he had to fight off submissions for like 2 minutes, which isn't. But after that, yeah, you would have beat him up. Like the dude literally had nothing.
Occasionally you see that where the other fighter just absolutely just.
Oh yeah, like after those. Yeah, any of us would have been able. I mean, I say that, and I'm like, this guy, but it's like the dude literally had nothing.
Yeah, they gotta be completely out of gas for us to have a chance. But sometimes that happens, and they just can't even move, basically.
Oh, it was like Nunez against Pena. It was even worse than that. Like Amanda Nunez, like he had no chance. Like it was over.
And if you win like that, then it's you got to put a guarantee assault with that. Like you said, you thought that victory was maybe baked into this line.
Rodolfo Vieira was minus 555. He closed that. Fluffy was plus 375 to plus 400. Like that was his last fight. Now he's coming off as this big of a favorite. I don't know.
Yeah, Fremd's first UFC fight. This is one, if you look at the matchmaking, they probably want Fremd to win this, right? The bigger prospect between the two, I would think, at least. Let's go to you, Keg. What do you see between these two? I think this is an interesting fight here.
Yeah, I think Hernandez deserves to be the favorite here because we've seen more of him. I think you could throw out his fight against Kevin Holland because he's not on Holland's level. He has a nice win over Piera, like Title said, and Jun Young Park. Listen, he's got some power. His hands are okay. He's a scrappy kid. He fights out of tough spots, but he doesn't get me excited. We haven't seen him in 14 months. There are still some unknowns with him. I know Josh Fremd, not personally, but like I knew of him before this week. He's a Factory X guy. His hands are actually solid. He wrestled in college. From what I've seen, his cardio shouldn't be an issue, especially since he trains at elevation. Now, Fremd could be chinny because he got stupid rocked, devastating knockout in LFA. But that being said, he did win 4 of 5 at LFA in a pretty solid middleweight division.
And say who that was against too, because I think that's important.
D-Rod, right?
Yeah, Gregory Rodriguez.
Yeah. So I think that Fremd could be a live dog here. Some of these dogs are going to cash this weekend because pay-per-view cards blow up these favorites often. So I think we're going to see some of these dogs cash this weekend, and I think that this could be one of them for sure.
Yeah, I think 3 for 3 there, kind of on Fremd and the value. We'll see if he can pull off the upset. 7,500 on DraftKings makes some sense to invest in Fremd for me. Let's go to another big favorite on this card, Garry, undefeated, minus 370 or so against Darian Weeks, making his second UFC fight. Weeks lost that fight in decision. Did throw a lot of volume, though, landed 125 significant strikes in the loss. You don't see that all too often. But Garry, I think a pretty impressive prospect coming up. Certainly the market thinks so. And we had another fight here with a big height advantage for Ian Garry, 6'3" to 5'11". A lot of height behind Garry, Keg. Do you think it's warranted? And how do you see this fight going down?
Yeah, I've been looking forward to this fight because we've only seen Ian Garry one time in the UFC. The knockout win over Jordan Williams, right? Although it was not that easy of a fight for him, despite him getting the first round KO. But there's a lot to like about this kid. He's huge, former Cage Warriors welterweight champion. They have a very good welterweight division over at Cage Warriors. He's at Stanford MMA now for the last couple camps. He has nice boxing, not great striking, but I think it's good. And where he is elite, obviously, is as a grappler, and his gas tank has looked pretty solid. Now, Darian Weeks, who made his UFC debut last time out on 4-day short notice against Brian Barberena, he managed to win a round in that fight, which wasn't terrible, considering that he was fighting a veteran on 4 days notice in his 6th pro fight. So listen, I think that he could turn into a good fighter in the division. He has a very good wrestling base. His takedown game is strong, really nice hands from both range or inside the pocket. Where he's at a big disadvantage in this fight, and why the odds I think are so high, aside from the hype surrounding Garry, is his takedown defense is disgusting. And that's a bad sign for him because Garry could decide to take it to the ground. And at that point, it's probably a wrap. Now, I don't feel comfortable this week putting Garry in parlays right now because he took some damage in that first fight before he got that win. Minus 400 feels a little excessive to me, especially when he opened up minus 190. That number's long since gone. If I didn't hop on it then, I'm not going to hop on it now. So I'm going to pick him to win the fight. As far as an angle, I don't mind the decision prop at plus 200 because the easy way to win this fight is to go to the ground, control Weeks. But my worry is he's 6'3", Weeks is 5'10". So the ground and pound could be in play here just based on his size alone. But I think that's why the KO prop's plus 110 because he could end it on the ground. But I'm going to lean the decision prop or the over 1.5 rounds as a parlay piece.
Yeah, that makes sense. How heavy a Garry is as a favorite. To me, that means, most bettors think Garry can control this one on the ground, right? I don't think he would be as big a favorite as this was expected to be a stand-up fight because Weeks, I thought, looked pretty good in that last fight. Again, threw a lot of volume, got some takedowns. I don't know. He seems like he might be a decent fighter to me. Title, I'm interested to hear your opinion on these two.
Yeah, man, this is a really interesting fight. Ian Garry comes in with so much hype on him. He's minus 490 over Jordan Williams, and he was getting pieced up from start until he got the knockout with 1 second left in the first round. Jordan Williams is chinny. I think Jordan Williams is a better striker than Darian Weeks. I will say that. I think Jordan Williams is solid. I really do. He fought Imavov to a decision. He's had a pretty rough stretch in the UFC, but I do think he's a better striker than Darian Weeks, which I think is reason why he's minus 400 in this fight, minus 385 and stuff. But I did say in the playbook, I do expect, or at least I think the easiest path is getting the takedown, using his grappling, which he has very good accolades of. But we just did he didn't shoot one takedown. He didn't even feint for one takedown against Jordan Williams last fight, which is a concern because he was getting pieced up on the feet in that one. And he still didn't even bother to try and change levels or show it. So, man, if this is a 15 minutes on the feet striking match with Darian Weeks, I'm not very confident with it. Ian Garry's striking defense is not good at all. Darian Weeks throws some nice leg kicks. He has some power in his hands. It's like I wouldn't pay minus 400 for Ian Garry.
It's too high, man. It really does. But
it does. And I think this line's even too high regardless of everything. Maybe a minus 275, minus 300. But at the end of the day, I still think Ian Garry wins. The UFC is handpicking opponents for Ian Garry. The Future is what his nickname is. He's 8-0. He's from Ireland. Everyone's saying like the next Conor McGregor, all this stuff. The UFC knows what they're doing for sure. They want him to win this fight. However, it's different. Wanting the UFC wanting you to win and actually going to the octagon and winning the fight is different. But I still, at the end of the day, I think Ian Garry does get it done. I think he's more well-rounded. However, we talk about the 3 main events, then we got to add this fight into that like pool of things because he's minus 400. All the other guys minus 450 or above. Those are the main 4 favorites on this card. Weeks is definitely the one I have most interest in.
By far.
And we say it like that though, but I've heard so many people throughout the week making a case for a certain one of the main event ones, and we'll get into it. We'll talk about it. But I think by far Darian Weeks is the guy. What would you rather bet against, Ian Garry or?
That's what I'm saying, man.
Khamzat Chimaev, Piera Yan, or Volkanovski?
You do get better fighters if you go against one of the
for sure. But that's kind of how I'm approaching it. I also think betting and DFS perspective, when we get to those fights, should be treated differently. So I'm excited for that. But at the end of the day, I think Ian Garry gets it done. It was a rough performance at first. I think this fight finishes personally. I think Ian Garry does put him away. I mean, we showed he has knockout power. If he gets it on the mat, he's dangerous. Could be ground and pound. Could find a sub. But yeah, I'll have some Darian Weeks still. I mean, you have to play some dogs. We liked a lot in the prelims. You need a 7K guy if we're not going to play those other guys. Yeah, I'll have some.
Yeah, to me, I mean, I'll be kind of shocked, frankly, if any of the 3 big favorites to end the card lose. You can't say you're going to be shocked if Weeks pulls the upset here, right? Like,
no,
I don't know. That's just
Ian Garry was losing every second of that fight until he wasn't against a Dusty Chin last time. Like, Ian Garry's nose was like. He does not have good striking defense. He has a lot that he still needs to work on.
I also think potentially title from a strategy standpoint, game theory standpoint with DFS, it does seem like maybe a lot of people are going to try to talk themselves into one of the underdogs on the 3 main fights, right? Like
I think so
because there's 3 of them, so you think, oh, I just got to pick one. One of them's going to lose, but maybe people won't go to Weeks here as often as we think. Just a potential angle there. Yeah. All right, we'll move on to the next fight. Mark Madsen and Vinc Pichel, who has some of the best facial hair I've seen in the UFC. a beautiful mustache from Pichel. So my initial lean is to go with him, as good as he's going to look out there. But this fight is expected to be close. Pichel minus 120 or so. Let's start with you again, Keg. What do you see between Madsen and Pichel?
That's a lot of rookie mistakes for you, Keg. That mute button's tough.
I know, man.
We get one Keg mute button per show. I think that's like minus 500.
Only this show. All right. So if you look at Madsen lately, he's looked okay, not great. I thought that he struggled way more than I thought he would with Clay Guida, which is a little concerning to me. We know what he is, a ridiculous wrestler, okay hands. At this point, 8 minutes of cardio, maybe. Now, he fights Vinc Pichel, who I think is a solid striker, looked very good against Austin Hubbard, where he was either able to pick him apart at range from both stances and in the pocket. His combinations were pretty good in that fight. So he was taken down in his last couple fights, right? But he was at least able to get out from bottom. Will he be able to tire out Madsen and do the same to him? I think that he has a chance. So the mustache opened like plus 130 offshore, and he's since taken money. I agree with the move. I think Pichel wins. And if the first round Madsen expends a ton of energy, I think that the Pichel knockout late is very live here at 15-1 in round 3. Either way, for me, the pick is Pichel. And although you lost some money from the offshore market, I still don't mind the price here. So aside from that, I've got nothing.
Yeah, both these fighters with impressive records. Madsen actually undefeated. Is he a former Olympic wrestler? Is that right, Mark?
Silver medalist, Greco-Roman, the Olympian. Yep.
Yeah. And has never lost in the UFC or at any fight. He's 11-0
pro record in MMA. Yep.
kind of impressive credentials, right? For a fighter who is, not fighting a world beater, I don't think in the mustache Pichel. So I don't know. Go ahead.
He did
Go
not
ahead.
make an Olympian against Clay Guida, a 43-year-old CTE Clay Guida.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I get it, but it's worth mentioning, I think. Title Pichel, Madsen, what do you see?
I mean, it is worth mentioning for sure. I had to put it all in the playbook. You don't see silver medalists in a Greco-Roman in wrestling in the MMA. Like the silver medalist, that's insane. Like that is really insane. He's 11-0 for sure. But Greco-Roman wrestling and stuff like that, translating into MMA wrestling is completely different. Like see what Islam, Khamzat, all these guys, there's different kinds of wrestling. And yeah, like I agree with Keg. Clay Guida, that split decision over Clay Guida, which was, I mean, it could have went either way for sure. I just can't get that fight out of my head. There's certain fighters, there's certain fights that it just changes your whole outlook on things, especially when I know he has a round and a half of cardio at most against Vinc Pichel. That, man, I mean, Vinc Pichel has been there. He's done that. He's 14-2, 3-fight winning streak. Austin Hubbard, Jim Miller, Roosevelt Roberts, Gregor Gillespie, he lost to. There's no shame in losing to Gregor Gillespie, though. I would take a Madsen wrestling. If I'm fighting Gregor Gillespie or Mark Madsen, I'd rather be fighting Madsen's wrestling than I would Gillespie's wrestling because he's not going to stop for 15 minutes. So he's dealt with wrestlers in the past before. He's just a way better all-around mixed martial artist. On the feet, it's Pichel all day for me. He mixes it up way more. Just grappling, it's Vinc Pichel. It's basically a really, really good wrestler that needs the takedowns, and then he has to have the top control and all of that. Otherwise, it's Vinc Pichel wherever the fight goes. I have interest in this fight in DFS because Pichel's 8,400, Madsen's 7,800. I think Madsen's going to be not popular, but as a dog at 7,800 with close odds, with wrestling and top control as the path to victory, it's hard to completely ignore him. I think he is live. I think Vinc Pichel wins this fight, though. I'm with Keg. He's just way more well-rounded. His takedown defense is a concern for sure. It's sitting at 26%. Some of that because of Gillespie. Hubbard's took him down a little bit. So a lot of that has to do with the opponents. I think Madsen can get a takedown or two, maybe has some success early, but the longer the fight goes, the longer the cardio drags on, the longer Pichel makes him work. I think it just favors him. So he's $600 more. I think that keeps the ownership lower than it is on Madsen. And I like that route for tournaments if I think he wins.
Is it safe to assume Pichel should probably be safe, even if he gets taken down to either get back up or last the round, right? I don't think Madsen's really a threat, much of a threat, because Pichel's just so experienced. Madsen likely, right? The wrestling's good, but combining it with striking and submissions, maybe
control over damage is how I think Madsen goes about this. I think everything you said is right. I would be surprised if he got a finish.
I also think it's a live spot. If Madsen wins the first round, as long as Pichel makes him expend energy,
I like this.
I'm taking him in round 2, 100% if he goes down.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. You guys are pretty convinced Madsen's gas tank can't last, which
it never does. Every single fight, it never lasts. He's 39. Yeah. It's unusual as a wrestler. He's also 39.
Yeah, and we've seen it, 3 fights in a row pretty much, even though he's won those fights. So, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. 3 for 3 on the mustache Pichel here. Let's move on to the next fight. My girl, Mackenzie Dern, taking on Tecia Torres, a fight that is very closely lined. Basically, essentially a coin flip at this point. Mackenzie Dern, small favorite, -120 or so. Dern's kind of been up and down, came in as a very big prospect in the UFC. She had that really disappointing loss as a big favorite. I think she was coming off pregnancy, I believe is what it was. She came back the next fight, looked in way better shape, performed much better than did drop her last fight, though. Torres has been pretty solid. I'm looking forward to this one. Don't always look forward to the women's fights quite as much, but I do like this fight. I got to go with my girl Mackenzie, maybe by submission, although her takedown offense has been lacking. That's kind of, I think, her kind of biggest weakness when you combine that, with the strength of hers, which is her submission game. It's not ideal, right? Because she has trouble kind of getting to her strength at times. So I do want to go with Dern here, but excited to see how you guys see Dern and Torres going down. Title, we'll start with you on this one.
Yeah, I mean, everything you said about Mackenzie Dern, like you painted it perfect. Her BJJ out of this world. Like the Francis Ngannou knockout power, the death touch and stuff, she has when it comes to grappling. If this fight hits the mat, it can be over in a second. The fight just changed. The Paul Craigs of the world. Like he can be losing, almost knocked out until he's not. The grappling is that legit. However, you can't use the grappling if you can't get a takedown or the other opponent or your opponent makes a mistake. I don't think Tecia Torres is going to make a mistake. She knows exactly what to like in the press conference or the whatever, when they were talking back and forth, like Tecia Torres, Mackenzie Dern and that Torres is pretty much like Torres knows Dern wants it on the mat. Torres like, you're not getting me on the mat. You can't take me down and all this stuff. And I totally agree with her. Like the takedown offense is not good. Torres on the feet, her movement is very good. It's a bigger cage, which means it's harder to grab onto someone and take them down. I just think Torres' striking and her movement is going to keep her safe the whole time. And I just think she's going to piece Dern up on the feet. However, Dern is one of the toughest fighters we see. Like she can take a beating for 15 minutes and she doesn't get finished. Torres, 11 of her 12 wins are by decision. Tecia Torres 11 of her 13 wins, is by decision. Tecia Torres by decision feels too easy. I know she's a slight dog, which I'm kind of surprised about. I just don't think Dern can get this fight on the mat. I really don't. I don't think Torres makes the mistake of jumping in her guard or anything. And with the bigger cage, with the movement on the feet, Tecia Torres is good, man. Her striking is good. Her volume is good. I just don't think Dern's going to be able to grab her and put her on the mat. So, I got to go Tecia Torres. I got to go with it by decision. I don't want decision fights really for DFS wise. I'll be underweight on this. Mackenzie Dern's going to get some ownership. She's only plus 180 to finish inside the distance, which you look at that, you're like, wow, especially for a price. That's because this fight only needs to hit the mat, and it could be once, and it could be over. But Torres by decision for me.
Yeah, that makes sense. You can get Torres by decision about 150, depending where you look. I think that does make sense as a bet if you're on the Torres side. It's not that much of a boost from just picking her to win anyway.
I was going to say, isn't that crazy? Like the books are literally telling you she has one path to victory.
Yeah. And sometimes you just gotta.
I don't know. To be honest, I would probably just take the plus 100 and stuff. That I don't know.
Yeah, I hear you. It's just not much of a boost, but it does seem like that will be the most likely outcome if she does get the win. So I think you could go either way there. Seems, fairly lined, frankly, those two numbers. Keg, what do you see here? Torres and Dern.
Oh, I said on last weekend's Kegcast that I was completely done betting women's MMA fights unless it's a championship level fight. Yet 2 days later, Torres by decision plus 150 on the spreadsheet. When I saw the line, I could not believe that she was a dog to Mackenzie Dern. Like, I like Mackenzie Dern. She's got world-class jiu-jitsu. Both you guys nailed everything about her, okay? But Tecia Torres is elite. Her striking game is legit. Her footwork, it's not Doug Rose level, but it is very good. I just don't see how Mackenzie Dern even corners her to get her down. Her offensive takedown game is pathetic. As world class as she is as a grappler, she just can't get people to the ground. And Tecia Torres is not going to make the mistake and go to the ground. She's got 20 fights in the UFC probably. She knows, I'm going to be on my bike. I'm going to pick this girl apart, and it's on to the next one. And it's just, it was the first line that jumped out to me on Monday, and it was like on the sheet by Tuesday. So I don't see anything else but Torres' decision here.
Yeah, I like it. That's kind of 3 for 3 on that. Torres. I started with Dern, but I think you guys are right. The more that we talk through this one, where I just don't think Dern is going to be able to use her strength, her BJJ, and if she can't use that, I think she's pretty likely to lose this fight, probably by decision. So that plus 150 number does look pretty good. All right, let's get to the 3 main fights on this card. This is I think a top heavy card, but man,
it most definitely is a top heavy card.
But 3 awesome fights, 3 really awesome fights to end the card. Before we talk about these, just a reminder: hit the like, hit the subscribe on YouTube so you don't miss any of our content. Baseball starting up; it's been a good start to the season. Our man JSU shipped over 100K last night. A lot of success in the MLB streets. Of course, we've got the NBA playoffs coming up, the Masters going on, big showdown contest for tomorrow. Keg's got his live bet package that you can add on if you want to sweat the fights and trucks and whatever else with Keg. Check that out over at runpuresports.com. But hit that like, hit that subscribe, allows us to keep bringing free content to you guys pretty much each and every day on the YouTube channel. All right, let's get to these fights. We've talked about them kind of, throughout breaking down the other fights, because these are the big three fights on this card. Three big favorites. Starts out with Chimaev and Burns. Chimaev looks like kind of an unstoppable force, frankly, in the UFC. This will be his fifth fight. He's finished his previous four, the last three in the first round. Burns, I'm a fan. Burns has made me money in the past, but tough ask here. Chimaev, the much bigger man, I think more skilled perhaps in every area, and just a fight IQ that appears to be through the roof too. I think the massive favorite that he is, what is he, minus 600 or so, something like that right now, is justified in my opinion. We'll start with you, Keg. Do you think Chimaev is, I assume you kind of think he's living up to the hype. I think it's hard to make the case against that. But do you think Burns has a chance here? Is Burns a live dog? And if Burns were to win, how would he get the job done against Chimaev?
Okay, so I'm happy you started with me, because I'm probably going to be different from the two of you. Here's the thing. If you're a recreational sports bettor and you're on the hype train and you're like, Chimaev to the moon, yeah, I'm on by knockout, plus 110, let's go, get the beers, call the boys, right? Okay. If you do this like for a job, MMA betting is all about small advantage plays over the long haul that make you profitable long term, right? So here, this line is stunning to me. So Gilbert Burns closed a plus 230 dog to Kamaru Usman. He dropped him in the first round, right? But that doesn't, forget about that. Doesn't even matter. Plus 230. Kamaru Usman may retire the greatest MMA fighter of all time when it's said and done. He's got 18 wins in a row, 7 or 8 title defenses in a row. He's gone through everybody through the division twice. And who knows how many more wins he strings in a row. And he was a plus, Gilbert Burns was a plus 230 dog to him. So if that's the case, how is Gilbert Burns a $4 dog to Khamzat Chimaev?
Because Chimaev would beat Usman himself, I think.
Yeah, but here's what's crazy: the line's out already, and it's a pick. It's a pick.
It got bought down so much. I'm with you though, DC. I have Chimaev over Usman too.
Okay, but that's the line is stunning, right? Like it's all about the value. So that line says a decade from now, Chimaev puts every fighter in the history of the UFC in the dust. That's what that line says. I'm not ready to make that leap. Now, I don't know how you can when the guy has fought 2 UFC level fighters, a busted old Gerald Meerschaert, and a solid fighter in Li Jingliang, right? Now, we have seen him do it ridiculously impressively, but now he's going to fight one of the 3 best welterweights currently on the planet, and he's a $6 favorite, and I just can't make that. I can't make that leap. So it was the easiest bet for me to make because I do this like every weekend, and it's just what I do. So I had to pull the trigger. I didn't want to because I think you guys probably, I'm on the train. If he goes in there and does what he's done to Gilbert Burns, I'll drive the bus with you guys. You know what I mean? But like, I had to.
You're too late, man. The bus is full. You can't. There's no room.
I'm probably gonna regret it. But I had to pull the trigger at plus 400 on Gilbert Burns. I had no choice.
I get it. You're getting a fighter of very, very high caliber and Gilbert Burns. I mean, legitimately one of the best fighters on the planet, right? Like he's not. But man, you didn't answer my initial question, Keg, is how does Gilbert Burns win the fight if he doesn't win?
Okay, so I think that he's got the hands. Definitely. He's definitely got the power in his hands to spark Chimaev for sure. We know that. And he is, everybody talks about Gilbert Burns' BJJ game like it's world class. Now, I don't think that we've seen enough of it in the cage to know if it's world class, but from everything that we've seen from like tournaments, I mean, he's a black belt in BJJ. He's going to be able to roll with Chimaev. I think that here's another thing. I don't even know. Everybody talks about Chimaev's gas tank like it's crazy, right? I would expect him to be there at the end of 15 minutes, ready to go for round 4. I don't know that because I've seen him 1 minute in a total of 4 fights so far in the UFC. So I think that, but we have seen Gilbert Burns gas. That concerns me a little bit in terms of him winning a decision. But we have seen him win decisions.
Yeah.
So he's capable of it. So I think that he could spark him or maybe win a decision if he could drag Chimaev all 3 rounds. Those would probably be my 2 most likely ways that I thought he wins if he wins. But I have a feeling that you guys are probably right, and Chimaev probably.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's lined the way it is for a reason. Right. Immune title. It sounds like think Chimaev is I think almost. I wouldn't say certainly. Obviously, Usman could stick around and beat him, but I think Chimaev is the best fighter in the division. I know it's early to say that, and maybe Burns stops the hype train. It's MMA. You never know. Anything can happen. But title, it does sound like you're kind of on my side of this one, expecting a Chimaev domination. I will say, Keg, I'd be more likely to give Burns a chance here if the size difference wasn't so much, right? If Burns was a big welterweight, but man, Chimaev.
That's true. He came up from 155.
Yeah, he's just a way bigger man, and for a guy like Chimaev who is always, it seems like, kind of stronger and more physical than anyone in the division anyway. Man, that's a tough ask to come up in weight to fight Chimaev. I just don't see it going well for Burns. We'll go to your title. What do you see here?
That was about the only point I could have had left. Was I was going to say Gilbert Burns came out from lightweight, but otherwise you guys pretty much hit every. I mean, I don't know. Like I went on with JSU in July of 2020 after Khamzat fought twice. He fought previous weekend. He took the fight the next weekend. The next week on the podcast with JSU when we were doing this, I said he was going to be the future champ. Right away, you just watch this guy and you just know it just looks like he's different. Has he fought anybody? No, he hasn't fought anybody. People are going to use that for the reasoning. I understand it. But when your eyes tell you something and right away where you just don't see guys do what Khamzat Chimaev does, something in your head. I mean, what? Starches Gerald Mearshart in one punch. GM3 has been in the octagon with complete studs. He's taken damage from complete one punch. He just put him away. His power is out of this world. His wrestling is insane. And the thing about this, yes, we haven't seen him do it in the octagon against great people. He's been training. I saw a video this week on Twitter. Man, it was a crazy video. Like 4 years ago, someone was asking, I'm blanking on the name. If either of you two saw this video, you can talk about it. But a reporter pretty much asked, who is like the best prospect or who's the most exciting guy that's not in the UFC yet that could be? And this guy was like, I don't know his name exactly.
Oh, you're talking about Brian Stan.
Yes. I don't know his name exactly, but there's this guy treating out in Sweden that I guess just absolutely beats on the best of the best guys, and he'll be in the UFC eventually. He was talking about Khamzat Chimaev. He's trains against like Alexander Gustafsson. He obviously trains against complete studs, and he gets the better of all of that stuff in the training room. His strength is just next level. His wrestling is next level. The Dagestanian wrestling, when you take your back, when you throw him to the ground, when you rinse and repeat, when you don't let go, when you smash him in the face, you make you defend the face and you take the neck, like just the little things like that, you just can't train for. You can't defend for. I have him over Usman. Go ahead.
I think everything you just said is correct, right? But from a betting perspective, you should have to see that. You should have to see him do it against elite competition in order to justify a $6 favorite price tag?
From a betting perspective, I think the best way to go about it is you bet all 3 underdogs and you need one to hit and you make money. From a betting perspective, I think that's the plus EV situation. For DFS, though, it's different than betting because just say you hit the Gilbert Burns, you need those other 5 pieces in your lineup to be right, or you don't realize that value at all. Whereas you just collect your 4-to-1 ticket when you're betting, and that's all you need. So I think betting and DFS are different. I'm glad you brought that up, Keg. I will personally say, though, Gilbert Burns is my least favorite bet of the 3 main fights that we'll talk about.
Damn.
The Korean Zombie, the value is way, like, he's like minus 750 or something. Like, the value on Korean Zombie is way bigger than the rest. We'll get to the Aljo Yan fight. I think Aljo has a better chance, but when I think someone's about to beat Kamaru Usman, who Keg's talking about could be the greatest of all time, and rightfully so, how can I say Gilbert Burns is going to beat him? And I'm a fan of Gilbert Burns, but when I think he's going to beat one of the greatest of all time, like how can I pick Gilbert Burns over him? So
I'll be excited to back Gilbert Burns in his next fight after he looks like crap here.
The thing is, it's going to be against a stud. I think it'll be against a stud because we know him. But I agree. I
bet he'll come in underrated in his next fight if Chimaev does what we know we think he's capable of. At least I'm with you. Title Burns, my least favorite of these underdogs. Let's get to the next fight. I think,
Josh, yep. Thank you, Josh. Brian Stan. Yes, that video was, I mean, man, someone talking about Chimaev 4 years ago, not knowing his name or whatever the thing was. And he's special, man.
He's like a mythical creature. He's like, I don't know what his name is, but man, I've been hearing things about him.
The thing I will say too, like how I'm approaching Chimaev is like Khabib. Like Khabib just never gave us, like, anytime fading Khabib just felt like you were trying to be cute. You know what I mean? You were talking yourself into something that you didn't really truly believe. That's how I'm approaching Khamzat. I don't know when I'll ever bet against Khamzat, but at least I know when I loses, I never considered the other side. That's kind of how I'm approaching it.
I remember this was like 15 years ago.
Well, I
remember watching John Jones's first fight on the undercard, watching him fight and saying, I'm backing this guy until he shows me something. And you can get him like as an underdog for like.
But you guys listen to what you're saying. Like Title just brought up Khabib. The dude went 30-0, 20-0 in the UFC. We're talking
Keg, when you believe in someone and you believe there's generational talent, you have to talk like I could look like the biggest idiot. I'm putting myself out there to look like the biggest idiot. But man, when you see something that you think is different, you got to do something about it. You got to at least talk about it.
I guess.
Well, I'll lose money, but it would be exciting to see Burns win the fight and then shock.
See, I'm too invested in for that to excite me.
Yeah, I hear you.
I can't have that be.
At the end of the day, we're counting the greenbacks first and foremost. So I get it. We got to keep moving. We got baseball lock coming up here in 40 minutes.
And NASCAR after this. NASCAR with Keg and then we're going live too.
Yeah. So we got to get to these last 2 fights. Rematch between Petr Yan and Aljamain Sterling. These 2 fighters went into the 4th round. Yan was pulling ahead in that fight. Sterling did have his moments, I think, in those first 4 rounds, which I think is important to note because the way this fight, the market currently has it, Yan is just almost as big of a favorite as Chimaev is. Not quite. But yeah, it seems like the public thinks Yan is going to walk away with this fight pretty easily. If you remember, it ended early. Sterling did get, awarded the belt, Yan with the illegal knee, and then Sterling just didn't come back, right? It was a pretty nasty strike, I thought. I've seen people with a differing opinion from that. It seems like Petr Yan absolutely hates Aljamain Sterling, but, social media stuff, all that. So there is it seems like legitimate bad blood between these two. I think Sterling has a better chance than Burns for sure. I do expect Petr Yan to win this fight, but Sterling landed 119 strikes in three and a half rounds or whatever against Yan. So he did have his moments. Keg, we'll start with you on this one. What do you see between Petr Yan and Aljamain Sterling? Like I said, I personally expect Yan to win, but I think Sterling has a chance. I think people are writing him off a little bit too much, as you often see, in my opinion, in rematches, right? You see the first fight, Jan's winning it, and then everyone's like, that's going to go exactly that way again. It doesn't always turn out that way, despite Sterling obviously, quote unquote, getting the win in the end. It was Jan who was going to win that fight if the DQ didn't happen. So yeah, Keg, talk about it. Jan and Sterling here.
Well, the most frustrating part of this fight is the fact that we didn't get paid off the first time around at -110 on Jan.
So hurtful. I locked in Jan and DFS too. I had all 150 on Jan. The most tilting thing of all time.
And this is where I understand how Title and even Tyler feel about Chimaev, because I have been driving the Jan bus since he was in ACB in 2017, right? Like I really do think that he could be the best pound for pound fighter in the UFC currently on the roster. I think he's that good. And he's got the sickest gas tank. He's got the most ridiculous striking skills of anybody in the UFC, I think, other than Izzy. Like after Izzy, I think Jan's the best striker on the roster. And he also has a solid wrestling base if he has to use it. And as far as Aljo, listen, I love him too, and he is elite. He is better than Gilbert Burns. So I understand why people are making the argument, I guess, for Aljo this time around, because he really is elite. I went back and I watched that fight. He's the clear-cut second best fighter in the division. But there are levels to this game, and he is a level down. That fight was not as close as I thought it was. I watched it last night again. It wasn't as close as I thought it was. I thought first of all, Jan broke him in the fourth and probably would have finished that fight in the final 8 minutes. And I thought that Jan won those early rounds. I thought he was better in those early rounds than I initially did. So the decision for me is, does Jan finish the fight? And it's a tough question. He broke Aljo, right? But I mean, I could definitely see these guys dancing around for 5 rounds. Also, my gut says that he would have ended that fight the first time around. So I think that the other big factor for me is that Jan didn't land one bomb on Aljo really the whole 20 minutes, like one of those Jan hammers. And I struggle to see him go another 20 minutes and not land a bomb at some point in the fight. So I'm leaning that Jan's going to get it done, and probably by decision is my gut. Probably by decision, although I worry about him landing a bomb. But I'll go Jan decision.
Yeah, this is one where I might take a stab on one of the long shots, where you're talking about 2 fighters with good gas tanks. We think there's going to be a lot of strikes landed. Jan has big power. Like, what about a Jan in like round 4 plus 1,200 or something like that? You know,
one more thing: over 2.5 rounds, I think is a parlay piece.
Yeah.
Another bet: Jan. What's the line on FanDuel? Jan round 4, 5, or by decision.
Yeah, I don't have that for
Jan 4. It's better on DraftKings. Jan 4, 1,200. Jan in round 5 on DraftKings, 1,800.
Yeah,
way better on FanDuel or on DraftKings and FanDuel.
I like taking those stats, and like you said, maybe you can find 4 or 5 or decision. You know, I don't know how much you bet those kind of long shot stuff, Keg, as a pro, but it seems like some of those numbers are a little bit crazy. Like, I think Jan definitely wins this fight in round 4 if they fought it 12 times. It seems like a pretty reasonable outcome for how high that number is for me.
I don't disagree. We bet them a lot on the bet side, like 4 or 5 or decision. The problem is when you're this big of a favorite, my gut says that line's going to be like over -200. I'll check right now on while Title's talking.
Title, let's go to kind of the DFS side of this one. I'm suspecting you're gonna, think Jan is gonna win again. Talk about the fight. You were on Jan the first time. You had it right. Didn't get paid. We'll see. Will you get paid today?
Well, I'm glad Keg brought up the last fight because I've heard all week and all this stuff. So many people talking about Sterling and how like he looked so good rounds 1 and 2. He was dominating that fight. Peter Yan put on a clinic from start to finish in that fight. What he did in round 1s and 2 was let Sterling throw the kitchen sink at him at a pace there was no way he could keep up. And Yan is so technically defensively sound. Those shots didn't hurt him. He was sitting right there, and he still fired back with the more damaging shots in round 1 and 2. And then after that, Sterling had no chance to get takedowns. Yan was giving him the trick takedowns, shoving him over. That man was going to finish that fight. There was no doubt about that. And I think in the rematch, I think Yan puts on another clinic. I think he does finish this fight. I wouldn't be surprised if it was a decision.
Michael, do you really? I've been on the fence, bro. You can get me over.
But the thing is, the thing is, like, it's not like I'm not that confident about it. I'm on the fence, but I lean the other side. So I don't think it's enough to push you. The thing is, like, I agree with what Keg said. And you were like, wow, like DC, like Peter Yan, I think he probably is. I mean, man, maybe Volkanovski we're about to talk about, the most all-around complete fighter in MMA right now. Like, what could you point to with Volkanovski or Peter Yan that they don't have? You can't. The cardio, striking defense, the striking, the leg kicks. Peter Yan, he looked against Jose Aldo. Aldo was beating up the front leg. He can switch to southpaw. He can switch to southpaw. He can switch to orthodox and fight a full fight like that, and you would not notice that it's his opposite stance. Like, the man is just special wherever it goes. He can be on top against Aljo. He stayed safe on top. Like, where does Aljo win this fight? Man, like what he did to Corey Sandhagen. If you want to back Aljo in this fight, watch what he did to Corey Sandhagen. Turn off the screen, put Aljo in your lineup. You will not see someone take care of Corey Sandhagen with what Aljo did. He got it to the mat right away. He's BJJ's next level. He walked through him like butter. You look at what Peter Yan and Corey Sandhagen just did. They had a hell of a fight. Corey Sandhagen put on a hell of a performance. But like, he painted a masterpiece, and Yan still just wins a unanimous decision and stuff. The thing with Yan is he leaves it more in the judges. Like you're saying, if it goes to decision, Sterling might throw more output. Yan will have the bigger moments for sure, but he doesn't always like knock down his opponent like once every round or something like that, that just puts a stamp on the round. So if the numbers are close on the scorecards, you don't want to be having a minus 500 ticket or something like that, which is why I think.
Would the two of you guys lay 180 for Yan round 4, 5, or decision?
I wouldn't, because people might call it crazy. I think I can knock him out in rounds 1, 2, or 3. Like, I think
Title is going to kill me today. He's going to.
And I mean, like, you're talking about you were talking one of the best ever, or you're saying one of the best, most complete. If he hurts him in round 1, he gives him a jab to a light high kick to a this or that. He hurts him. That's a killer down there. He can finish that fight.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, DFS wise, I think Yan wins. Plenty of Yan. I'm leading finish. I wouldn't be surprised with the decision, but he can still score great in a decision too. But
he can, and I do. Or like I said, I do expect Yan to win this fight. But Sterling, I think, looks like a pretty good play in DFS, because
I think the ownership will show that too, though.
Sure. But if Sterling wins this fight, right? Whether that's
optimal,
he's on the optimal. So let's just say that seems
for
like
sure.
almost a near certainty at 6,900.
Sure.
I actually think he's got a chance to get on the optimal as a loser in the decision, because he's so cheap, 6,900. There's massive favorites. There might not be that many upsets on this card, right? There's only 12 fights. It's not a 14, 15 fight card. And Sterling landed 119 strikes into the 4th round. If they get to decision, if you just extrapolate it out for 5 rounds, he could land 150 strikes. He had some control time in that fight, along with the takedown. Sterling could lose a decision and put up like 70 or 80 points. It's very rare for a fighter to be able to do that. At 6,900, if it all breaks right, he could lose a decision and I think end up on the optimal. I think that's possible, just looking at the salaries and just how this specific DFS slate card is constructed. So if you've got both outs, which I think you do, that makes for a pretty fun play. Obviously, if you get starts early on, it's going to go up in flames, but you could still even cash, right? Like I don't think Sterling's going to kill you here. I think he's going to land a fair amount of strikes and put up a decent score.
Do either of you remember what he was scoring when that 4th round?
I think he had like 68 or something. I want to say
which is a good score for being.
Because then what? Well, look, DC, you looks like you have it up. What he scored? 96, 90.
99. He landed 119 strikes, takedown.
And that was the 30. You get 30 for the 4th round win, right? So it was like
69. Yeah.
69, yeah.
And that's without even going through the 5th round. And so,
well, he wasn't going to get anything in that 5th. He was going to make a couple,
but he could this fight.
Everything you're saying, I agree, is right. But because I know 100% what you're saying, for me, my counter of why I'm not doing it, because I know the ownership will be there. I don't think he wins. And I think I picked like 5-6 dogs on the prelims that I've already picked to win. So if like 3 of those win, you would need probably almost every one of those to lose, maybe 1 dog. You need the favorites to win for that to work. But that can easily happen with 12 fights.
Yeah. I wouldn't be shocked if both Jan and Sterling end up on the winner. I don't know.
That is something I just never do to my. It was last time they were both on the optimal, I believe.
Yeah. I don't think you see me make the case for playing two fighters in the same fight, as long as as many shows as we've done. But on this particular fight, on this particular card, I could see it happening, at least more likely than normal. I'll certainly have some Jan, but also plenty of Sterling for me. All right, let's get to the last fight of the night. Alexander Volkanovski, impressive champ, man, what a beast he is, against the Korean Zombie. Volkanovski, big favorite here, -700 to -800 depending on where you look. Volkanovski just but nothing but impressive, coming over a dominant win, 229 strikes landed over Ortega. Before that, beat Holloway twice. I think Holloway, those were just so close.
He 100% did not beat him twice.
I agree, but on paper at least he did. Listen, Volkanovski's willing to go to war, right? Tough as nails, but I mean, Holloway tagged him many times in both those fights, so his striking defense isn't perfect. He's part of it. I think he's just not afraid to take a shot. I think he just believes in his chin. What was it? Ortega that almost submitted him, where he just face was
twice,
but refused to go out. I mean, just tough as nails. But the Korean Zombie, man, he's a good fighter too. He's a high volume guy with power. I think he's going to have some success landing, at least early on in this fight. I'm not laying 800 on Volkanovski. He's going to show up and put on a performance. But I do think the Korean Zombie will land some strikes early, and you never know if one of those lands right on the button. I think he's has a bigger chance to win than Burns. Guessing, Keg, you might be on the other side. Talk about Volkanovski and Korean Zombie here.
Yeah, so for me, one of the most impressive things about Alexander Volkanovski is his recovery rate. Yeah. Like he's not chinny. Right? Like, I've seen him hurt on the feet before, but by the time he gets down to one knee and catches himself and bounces back up, he's ready to go again. Like, his recovery rate is unbelievable.
MMA, in my opinion, that's a strength for sure, but it could also be a weakness because
true.
Yeah.
True. Yeah. And MMA math doesn't really factor into my handicap when betting MMA because matchups are everything. Yeah. That being said, the way in which Brian Ortega destroyed Zombie on the feet, I was surprised to see how easily that Volkanovski outclassed Ortega on the feet. And that's extremely concerning, I think, for anybody that's looking to back Zombie in the fight. In my opinion, I think that this is I respect the Korean Zombie, but I think that this is the safest big favorite on the card. Because as much as I love Jan, he is facing the elite of the elite. And Zombie used to be the elite of the elite. He has taken a half peg down. He slowed down a bit. I don't think he's the fighter that he used to be. He's an excellent striker. He's always has the puncher's chance. But outside of catching Volkanovski dead, and I mean dead because of how Volkanovski recovers, I just don't see Zombie winning the fight. I can't see it. So, yeah, I think that I've landed on the KO prop at in that plus 220 range. I think that's where I'm leaning personally myself.
Yeah, I can see the title. Let's go to you. I think Korean Zombie's best chance is to win this fight early on with just a clean strike. And, you can land clean on Volkanovski. We've seen many fighters do it. Title, break it down for us.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think Korean Zombie has to win in rounds 1 or 2.
Yeah.
The thing is, like, you're looking at these lines, though, like, I'm like, you and I are on the same page with this, DC. I'm taking the plus 540 instead of plus 340 for Korean Zombie over Gilbert Burns. Something like that, like minus 770 for Volkanovski. I get it. He's looked unstoppable, all this stuff. Korean Zombie can still crack, though. He still has power. You still have to eat a shot. If your brain shuts off, I don't care how tough you are, you're just not going to be able to get up. Zombie has the power to land that. So, like, using Volkanovski as a parlay piece at minus 770, I think you're out of this world. You're nuts to do that. I really do. I think if you bet all 3 of the dogs in these 3 fights, I think that's probably the plus EV move. I'd rather do that than parlay all of them. That's just, I mean, yeah, you'll make money if you bet all the live underdog, but plus EV and betting against what you believe to happen, yeah, you guys can decide that. But for DFS, like, man, like, it's supposed to be Max Holloway in this fight. He pulled out for injury. There's multiple other guys that I think would give a better fight than Korean Zombie. Yeah, he's minus 770. I don't need to say much. Korean Zombie has a puncher's chance in round 1 or 2. The longer this fight goes, the more Volkanovski takes over. I lean inside the distance. I just think Volkanovski's a stud everywhere. He has no weaknesses, but it's MMA.
You can't get Korean Zombie to win by TKO KO in round 1 at plus 3,000.
What about round 2?
Round 2, I'm seeing 3,500.
There you go. Put $5 on both of those or something out there.
There you go.
So one thing for people that are just looking for like little fun bets to keep yourself entertained, if you parlay the last 3 dogs on the card, it's 112 to 1. $10 makes you a nice chunk of change. Let's say you take Burns out and you just take Zombie and Sterling, it's still 25 to 1.
The problem with that is if you get to the 3rd fight, you're probably going to hedge out anyway.
Yeah, true.
So it's like, yeah, at least I would. I don't want, but that's, if you want to do a fun one. And I honestly usually make a parlay that picks every fight on the card. And
we do it on the show.
$2 on it. Yeah. Just in case you get them all right. You want to get paid. So it's going to be an awesome card. That's almost 2 hours of MMA talk. Love talking with you guys. Each and every UFC card will be back. I think they have one next week. But yeah, regardless, next week, another card, UFC Fight Night. The show will be on Friday. We do Saturday just for the pay-per-view. We got to get out of here. We got baseball lock coming up. We got NASCAR. We got a full day of sports, Masters to watch. So yeah, again, thanks for watching, everybody, whether you're here live or after the fact. And we do appreciate it. Hit that like, hit that subscribe if you want to join the team over at Run Pier Sports. Of course, we have options for that as well. We'd be happy to have you as a member. That'll do it for Title, for Keg. I'm DC, and we'll check you next time.
Good luck, everybody.
Later.